You're listening to the Jiu Jitsu Lou podcast, and I'm Lou Temlett. I'm guessing you're having a good day because either you've been on the mats, considering getting on the mats, or maybe you're not ready to give up competing. I'm so happy you're here listening or watching this episode. Please don't tap out before the end. When you're good at a sport and you've mastered the first lesson, continue training Jiu Jitsu. I'd like to welcome Dr Jen Case to my podcast. Hi Jen, how are you?
Hi Lou, thank you for having me.
Fantastic. It's great to speak with you. Please introduce yourself for anyone that doesn't know who you are, Dr. Jen.
I'm Dr. Jen Case, or Dr. Jen Jitsu. I truly am a doctor. I have a PhD in human nutrition with the focus being nutrition and human performance. I'm also a dietitian and a certified specialist in sports dietetics. And then on the athletic side, I've won IBJJF Master Worlds 13 times, PANS 5 times, International Masters twice, and then at ADCC, I medaled at the North American Trials.
Okay, let me just pick myself off the ground and my jaw from the floor. That is an incredible repertoire of skills and abilities and accolades throughout the jiu-jitsu world. Let's talk about your PhD and your nutrition and kind of science background and how that might kind of influence jiu-jitsu, I guess.
Yeah. So actually, jiu-jitsu dictated my schooling. When I first went to college, I was a graphic design major. And then after my first year of college is when I found jiu-jitsu. That was in 2001. And I absolutely fell in love with jiu-jitsu, fell in love with sports, competing, all of that. And so I switched my major from a Bachelor of Arts to a Bachelor of Science in athletic training. My thought there was that I could heal my own injuries.
Like that.
That literally, that was what, because I'd looked at physical therapy as a major, and then I looked at athletic training, and I was like, this is much more applicable to the types of injuries I'm sustaining. So I did my bachelor's in athletic training, and then my master's, I went on and did sports studies, which is like sports administration, basically. And at that point, I was an MMA fighter, and I had only had 2 nutrition classes. And I knew I had to be cutting weight wrong because I was winning, but I was not feeling great. So I was like, I'm doing something wrong. And so that's what got me to do my PhD in nutrition. I was like, I'm missing a piece, and this has got to be the piece, because I had a solid base of weight training and that side of things. And so I was like, the nutrition's got to be the missing piece. So I went on, got my PhD in nutrition. For my dissertation, I actually looked at alternative methods for weight cutting, and I used the military combatives athletes. So the military combatives is like a jiu-jitsu tournament that all the different army like branches and bases and whatnot come together, and it's just a big, like, I think it's a 4-day tournament that these gentlemen do.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I worked with our local Fort Riley team, and I had a control group, and then I had a group that I was using a higher protein diet as their way of making weight instead of doing the sauna and whatnot. And that is the only year that Fort Riley won the entire tournament. I'm not saying it's only because of me. Yeah,
it sounds like it's because of you.
And so, I got my PhD there. At that point, I started being a professor and kind of started taking a little bit of a step back from competing and working with people more. And that's when I realized I wanted to work with a wide variety of athletes. So I went back to college because, 10 years wasn't enough. And I got the graduate certificate in dietetics and then the sports dietetics. So now I'm able to work with all athletes, no matter what their health condition.
Oh my goodness. I'm still going to keep lifting my jaw off the floor. Okay, I want to go back to the switching from arts, graphic design, to a science major. Now, for me personally, I was doing, back in high school, very advanced maths. And actually, it was above me. It was completely above me. So I opted for something easier in terms of kind of communication studies and kind of drama and more media TV stuff. So I really felt like I was going from the really hard option to the easy option. But it sounds like you've gone from the really easy option to the hard option.
Yeah, I would say I did. Another thing that happened during that time, when I was in high school, I did not have I had some good teachers, but a lot of the teachers were not great, and they actually labeled me with a learning disability. And so when I
Wow.
started college, thought I had a learning disability. So I was getting like B's, couple C's, and then I started jujitsu. And my instructor, like he saw I was good, and so he's like, "You need to try harder. You need to work harder." And him just kind of pushing me, being like, "You're not reaching your full potential," kind of made me
Wow.
realize I was not reaching my full potential in school.
Yeesh.
And so I switched. I like that, like flipped my switch, and I ended up graduating with department honors, magna cum laude. So, I just needed that push. And my instructor, Steve
Wow.
Trimlow, he kind of was like, "Hey, stop being lazy." So,
Oh, that's incredible. Having someone outside of your education, kind of in your hobby
yeah,
world, and maybe it wasn't quite so hobby. It doesn't quite sound like it was
yeah,
hobbyish at that point. But someone, like you say, flipping that switch and going, you need to work harder. There is more potential in you. And
yeah,
someone being able to see that in you so early in your kind of jujitsu career, how did
yeah.
that make you feel?
It definitely made me work harder. Because at that time, I was 19 years old. So
Yeah.
you've got teenage children. You
Yeah.
you know how their mindsets are. So, but yeah, it definitely having someone be like, "You're good," because my whole life, especially with being
Yeah.
told by the teachers I had a learning disability, I was
Yeah.
told I was not good, and then to have this guy who's only known me for 6 months to a year, being like, "No, you're good. You need to put forth the effort, and you
Wow.
can be great." And so having someone who really didn't even know me, he had no need, because your parents would be like, "You're great." It's like, well,
Yes.
it's your job. You have to say that.
Yeah.
But this guy's a virtual stranger almost, and he's like,
Yeah.
"No, you're good. You need to work hard." And so that kind
Mm.
of really pushed me.
It sounds like some of our teenagers, I hope my son's listening, need to go out and find someone in their life to kind of see them from an external perspective and have that influence on them. And I guess, anyone listening to this may well already be in the jiu-jitsu world, but, if we've got children that aren't in the jiu-jitsu world, they probably are. We're talking to the converted, I think, Jen.
Yeah.
um, but it's having that external influence that for you has made a massive difference in your whole career in education and your success in jiu-jitsu.
hmm Yeah, and I'm so grateful for my coach, and that's one of the things when I see kids not getting in sports right now,
Yeah,
it's like, oh, but you're missing an opportunity not only just to get out and have fun, but
yeah,
you talk to other athletes and they've had impactful coaches like I had,
yeah,
and if all they're doing is playing on their screens, they don't have that opportunity. And it doesn't have to be sports; it could be an art teacher, it could be a piano
yeah.
teacher, just something. Get out there, try stuff, do something.
Yeah, I do think it's about trying new things. But in your case, I'm tempted to ask how many other hard things have you transitioned to from something relatively gentle and easy with that kind of switch at 19. What else have you kind of done that's really hard? Um,
Um,
yeah,
I think probably the biggest thing for me was I was very quiet and shy. And I'm still pretty introverted until I get to know somebody, but definitely how I was before. I don't think I would have been able to be a college professor. Going out and just competing, being in front of a crowd like that,
yeah.
all those things when you're very shy is difficult to do. But if you want to succeed, you got to face it and do it.
Yes. Now, I do know that you have a more creative streak.
Mhm.
Let's just delve into that now before we leave the creativity behind, Dr. Jen. Tell me what you're doing creatively now.
So now I predominantly work in the glass arts. I do flame work, which is basically glass blowing. If you've seen the Blown Away show, it's the smaller things on the torch. That's my main one that I do, and then I also do stained glass, and I also do fiber arts, is what they call it, mainly crochet, and I do that on tournament days. That's how I keep from getting nervous. I make little creatures on tournament day and focus on that instead of my competition until it's time to get on the
Wow.
mats.
Okay. That sounds very cool. Now, I have seen the glass blowing creatives, and
Yeah.
tell me more about some of that process in terms of mindset, the creativity, bringing in some of the kind of
Yeah.
clever stuff, but creative stuff.
Yeah. So what I really like about working with glass is that depending on how the light hits it, it's going to affect how it looks. Depending on your flame, whether you're using a reduced flame or a heavily oxygenated flame, that's going to affect how the glass comes out of the kiln. How you mix the glass, because you can actually take two rods of different colors and
Yeah,
you can mix them together. You can do it as a full mix. You can do it as kind of a twist so that you still see both colors. And when
yeah.
those colors overlay, then the light hits it, then that's going to change how it looks. So you're able to take a somewhat limited color palette, and as you start messing with it, you can really start to expand it. And for me, I like to do floral things, aquatic things, things that can just kind of be fanciful. I don't really want it
Yeah.
to look hyper realistic. I just want to have fun with it.
Oh, it sounds very cool. It does sound like a lot of components. I relate almost everything in the world now, Dr. Jen, to jiu-jitsu and
Mhm.
how all of the components. I'm kind of going the different colors, the different lights. Well, that's different limbs, and that's different movements, and the different kind of weight positions,
Mhm.
and all of those things. So it sounds like I'm tenuously, I'm going to draw parallel to the complexity of glass blowing and jiu-jitsu.
Yes, yeah, you definitely could, because you take how the move is kind of taught to you, and then
Yeah,
you modify it, right? Because like my coach, his legs are like this long, so he'll teach me something, and I've got to incorporate it for a normal size leg with giant quads, right? So I'm not going to hit it exactly the same as he does, but I'm going
yeah.
to take parts of what he does, mix it with a little bit of what I do, and come up with this move that works really well for me.
I love that. And I think that the skill and experience is the knowing how to mix it really well.
Yeah.
Now, talk to me. You started with MMA, but
Mhm.
talk me through your jiu-jitsu career from that pivotal 19-year-old
Yeah.
Dr. Jen or pre-Dr. Jen, becoming the ranked number one Masters 2 in the world, Dr.
Yeah.
Jen.
So I started in 2001. And at that time, when I went to tournaments, there wasn't a female division. So I had to compete in the male division as a white and a blue belt. And
Wow.
competing against men, it's hard. I don't know if you know this. It's our bodies are a little different. It's not really
Yeah.
equal. So I did actually place a couple times. I never got first, but I did place a couple times in those smaller tournaments. But I wanted to go against other females. I wanted to see how I would do against my own peer group. And so I
Yeah.
started doing MMA simply so I could grapple a female. And if you watch my matches, my style of fighting was to run out, block the punches with my face, and pull guard.
Okay, I'm just having a moment now, Dr. Jen.
Yeah.
Holy whatevers.
Yeah, you'll
Oh,
see it. My face is like boom, 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 and I'm trying to get guard. I finally get her into guard, and then we go. So yeah,
so is guard play your thing now?
it was until I got into the PhD program. My first year in the PhD program, I popped my ACL. And so I'm in grad school, don't really have great insurance because I'm a grad student. So for
Yep,
3 years, I had a torn ACL. It's really hard to play guard with a torn ACL. And that's when I switched and started playing top because I didn't have a guard. I could not hold guard because of that knee. And
yeah.
so I worked on developing a top game. So, and now my knee's healthy. So now I have both. But I think that's a big part of making jujitsu for the long haul is
Yep,
knowing how to change things based on an injury because stuff's going to happen. Hopefully, not as severe as what happened with my knee, but aches,
yeah.
pains, that sort of thing. You're gonna have to change up your game based on what's going on.
So, is that a natural healing, or did you have to go through surgery?
I had surgery. I've actually had three
Okay.
ACL reconstructions. So
Okay. Oh
yeah,
my goodness. Is this on the same knee, or are they
uh,
allowed to do repeat ACL repairs?
yeah. So the first knee, it got repaired, and then I popped the other side in 2000 like 14, 15, can't remember. Got that one fixed and
Yeah.
then popped the original one, and that one was a doozy because I ended up when I hurt my knee that time, I pulled the meniscus off the bone, tore the ACL, the PCL, and the LCL. So yeah,
Yeah. So
but
a
nine months
complete job.
later 9 months later I came back and won Master Worlds, so it's all good.
Okay, so yeah, from recovery, injury to
Yeah,
recovery to winning worlds.
yeah.
That does sound amazing. This episode is sponsored by INSEO Mental Performance. INSEO helps Brazilian Jiu Jitsu competitors develop their mental skills for peak performance. As a BJJ competitor, there are only 3 things you can train: your body, your skills, and your mind. And often it's the mind that holds us back from finding our best on the mats. This is where INSEO can help through one-to-one mental performance coaching. Head over to inseo.biz/BJJ to download your free mental skills for BJJ guide, including practical exercises and tips to help you find your best more often. This is a Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast with me, Lou Temlett, coming to you from the UK. One of the things that would really help this show grow is by you subscribing on whichever platform you are listening or watching on: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or even Amazon Music. That's not last but least. Anyway, you can call it up on Alexa. Sorry. If you could do that for me right now, I would be forever grateful. And as always, go and check out the clips on Instagram or YouTube. Today, I'm having a conversation with Dr. Jen Case. So, winning worlds after 9 months after recovering from ACL and all the other CL things. Tell me about that.
So, when that one happened, so I had just double golded 2 years before, and I'm getting ready for Worlds, and I went to scissor sweep a guy. And as I went to scissor sweep him, my knee went down, my foot went up, and his weight came forward, and the knee, it just shifted out. Like my femur's going this way, my tibia's back here, and it stayed there for the last 15 seconds of the round. And so, I knew right then. I was like, oh, I'm done. So I didn't get to go to Worlds that year. I had surgery in December, and then rigorous recovery. Like I was on my rehab. I did it hard because I knew I wanted to get back for the next Worlds, because I watched the ladies that I had beaten the year before win the year I was not there. And so I stuck with my rehab, hit it hard. I did what I listened to my doctors, which is hard to do because they're telling me to stay off the mats. But I listened to them. I followed them. I did my rehab.
Yeah.
Once I could safely get back on the mats, I got back on the mats, and I wore pink duct tape on the ACL side. That way people knew, don't attack that leg. You can brace on it and whatnot, but no knee bars, no ankle locks, don't touch it. And so, and my teammates were really good about not messing with that leg. So I was able to get back to training after, I think it was about 7 months post-op, doing the light training, protecting that leg. And then 2 weeks before Worlds, I was officially released for full training, went double golded at Worlds.
It sounds like there's some mindset in there, Dr. Jen. I mean, sheer bloody determination at the very forefront of that. Tell me about your mindset and your determination. Where are you drawing your inspiration to just go for it?
It's tough to say where exactly it comes from. I think a lot of it stems all the way back to the very beginning, when I was told I could do better, that I can achieve more, I can do better. And so just that mindset of, can I do this? Can I achieve this? Am I at this level? Let's find out.
Oh, so it's the testing.
Yes.
It's that kind of, test case scenario. Can I do this?
It's the challenge.
I love it. The curiosity and intrigue.
Yeah.
I like that, rather than, for me, it's, I'm not sure I can do this. But actually, if I switch it to the curiosity and the let's see, it feels less scary, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, because I look at it as not my opponent trying to beat me, but me trying to beat them, me trying to see what my body can do, as opposed to, am I going to get beat up? I don't know. But can I trick them into winning? Can I achieve this? Am I capable? That's how I look at it.
Oh, I like those questions. I'm now intrigued more to write myself a list of positive questions. Can I do this? Do you then answer your own questions in training and the build up? Like, here's how I could do this, or here's how I might trick them, or are you leaving? Is there a kind of nebulous cloud of uncertainty, or are you kind of pinpointing some of those techniques in training?
Yeah, I try to get rid of the potential uncertainties, when I train, I have, especially leading up to a tournament, I have my
Yeah.
A game. Like, this is how I want the match to go from the feet to the sub. And
Yeah.
I work on that. And then I will also work on starting out the match in the bad position. Like, say I didn't get my takedown and I got taken down. That's kind of the worst possible option for me. So we'll start there, and then I funnel everything back to my end game. And then that way it's like, doesn't matter if I started off or if she gets lucky and gets me taken down. I know the steps that need to take it to get it to that end spot.
Okay, I like that. So, assuming your A game was there, you're just
Yes.
then recovering the position from the bad takedown or whatever position you're in to get to the start of your A game and then work your A game.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I try to explain to the students that I work with, especially for tournaments.
Yeah.
If you have 10,000 techniques, as soon as you get slammed into the mat or you get caught in an armbar, those 10,000 techniques go out of your mind. And you're only going to have 1 or 2 techniques that you remember. So if you build your game around those 1 or 2 techniques and but figure out how can you funnel your opponent to always be coming towards those 1 or 2 techniques, it doesn't matter what happens, because okay, I'm caught in an armbar. Here's how I escape. Here's how I reverse it. Here's how I get you redirected back to my 1 or 2 moves. And you just keep doing that, and that's how you develop your game.
Oh, okay. I now have a new strategy, but one of the things that's coming up for me, I've been dancing since the age of 3, so in excess of 40 plus years. And the guys, it's partner dancing, sarok, salsa, bachata. But the guys usually, or whoever is leading and I follow, I have learned to lead, but actually the leads have they all look impressive and they're all, exceptional at what they do. But I've observed them so many times, and only 1 or 2 of them have admitted this. So there's hundreds and hundreds of dance moves in whichever style, and they only ever pick 5, and they literally rinse and repeat those 5 moves, and they look fantastic. So even if I'm trying to sabotage their move, they'll still bring it back to their 5 moves. So for me, being on the dance floor in that position, they're literally just rinsing and repeating the things that they're so good at, and they've been dancing for years. So I like the idea and the concept of having a sequence of moves, whatever you are, getting back to that A game, working that sequence until you get that sub, game done.
Yep, exact same.
And breathe. Okay, I now have something in my life to relate it to, because I'm not quite there in terms of techniques with being a blue belt. Let's now talk about the weight cutting and the techniques you used with the military teams, and just some of the kind of the test subjects, the kind of controlled studies. I'm intrigued as to how you kind of work through some of that and the benefits of whatever outcome for them to win that year and the only year.
Yeah, so the biggest thing, the control group, I did not dictate their diet or what they did to make weight. So there was usually 4 gentlemen per weight class. And so I would take 2 and I messed with their diet and got them ready. And then the other 2 did whatever they did the previous year. And the biggest thing with my guys is that I had them start cutting weight, start dieting down basically 8 weeks before the tournament actually happened.
Yeah.
So that by the time it was time for the tournament, my guys were within a few pounds of where they needed to be. And so for most of them, all we did was do a water cut. They weighed in, then they rehydrated and went. Because the problem is with traditional water cutting methods, such as using a sauna, the hot baths, all those things, when you apply systemic heat to the body like that, you decrease force production. And that lasts for 24 to 48 hours.
Wow.
So, So if you have a 24-hour weigh-in, right, it's a different story. But with jiu-jitsu, at best, maybe you have 4 hours. If you're doing IBJJF, it's mat side. You don't have time to rehydrate. So doing those things where you're doing the systemic heat application, you're decreasing force production, which is absolutely going to impact your game. Because yes, we don't use technique, or excuse me, yes, we use technique and we're not supposed to use strength. But when you're in a tournament and you've got to power through something, that's strength, that's force production. And if it's reduced from cutting weight, that's going to impact your performance.
Okay. I'm all for that. I mean, I love a sauna or a steam room, whatever, but
Yeah.
not in the weight cutting process, or not trying to kind of achieve. Okay, so that sounds like really healthy advice.
Yeah.
Do you? What are the latest kind of things in nutrition, sports nutrition, for kind of supporting just being the strongest individual possible for competing?
How so? What do you mean?
Hmm. So, obviously, weight cutting is a thing,
Hmm.
but actually, kind of fueling our body, being in the best state, ready for competition.
Hmm.
What are the latest nutrition or kind of strength techniques and things might we do to prepare ourselves for competition?
So the biggest thing for competition, in my opinion, is your glycogen stores need to be full. And in order for your glycogen, that's the carbohydrates, that's your energy stores.
Yeah,
When those are full, that also means you are going to have some fluid in your system. So getting down to weight about 3 or 4 weeks before the tournament is ideal, because then
yeah,
that way you can make sure your carbohydrates are full, your glycogen stores are full. You can still do a little bit of dehydration the day of, like maybe 1-2% body weight, but
yeah,
those glycogen stores need to be full, especially for jiu-jitsu athletes, because we're going to end up having 4, 5, 10 matches, and each of those matches is
yeah,
anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes depending on your bracket.
yeah.
And glycogen stores take 24 hours to fill up. So if you even
Wow.
if you weigh in 4 hours before the first match, you're still
Yeah.
not going to be able to fill those back up by the time it's time to get out there and perform.
Okay, now for those of us that occasionally hear the word glycogen, what
Mhm.
does that mean? You've mentioned carbohydrates.
Mhm.
Talk us through some of those basic carbohydrates, just so that we can cross match and tick some of those knowledge boxes, Dr. Jen.
Yeah. So glycogen is the body's storage form of carbohydrates. You store the glycogen, 80% is stored in your muscle, the rest is stored in your liver. The carbohydrates that you store in your muscle can only be used by that muscle. So if I'm, mainly playing where I'm just grabbing as hard as I possibly can, if
Yeah.
I burn out the glycogen stores in my biceps, the glycogen stores in my thighs cannot go to my biceps. So that's
Mm.
why I want to make sure my glycogen stores are at max capacity, so that I have a decreased risk of depleting those glycogen stores. And you can also help decrease this risk by eating carbohydrates when you compete. That's the hardest thing to do, is to get people to eat. Now, what's nice is carbohydrates, that's a whole class of nutrients which include sugar. So
Okay.
candy. Eat
Yep.
candy the day of competition, because that is a carbohydrate that is rapidly absorbed and transformed into glucose. Okay? It's
Oh,
actually glucose. It's just getting broken up and made into the individual molecule, but it is the best way to do it. So on competition day, eat
yep.
your Sour Patch Kids, eat your Skittles, whatever. It's a fat-free candy is best to get those carbohydrates in. Leading up to the competition, like the night before, that's when you're going to want to have more of your complex carbohydrates. And you don't need a carbo load. Don't eat an entire lasagna and think it's going to help you. Okay,
Okay.
that doesn't. I mean, it's fun, but that's not carbo loading. That's a whole different process. But you
So
do want to make sure.
for
Oh, I
those of
forgot.
us that love lasagna.
Yeah, but the day before, you definitely want to be eating your more kind of quote unquote healthy carbs, things that have carbohydrates and fiber. So
Yeah.
multigrain bread, oatmeal, fruit, things like that to help build up
Yeah.
those glycogen stores. And then day of, it's candy.
Okay. Good. So we've got it. We've got it on good authority, Dr. Jen.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to relate back to my dancing world. I used
Yes.
to go on weekenders, so dancing from around 6 p.m. on a Friday evening until around 5 a.m. on a Monday morning. So the whole
Mhm.
weekend of dancing. And I did manage to get some sleep. But what I would do is have a lovely big bowl of this was back in probably about 10 years ago, brown pasta. It's like the most disgusting thing in the world. Anyway, topping up on really what I thought was complex carbs back then at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So I then could dance from
Mhm.
around 4 o'clock until the very early hours, maybe even lunchtime the next day. And that served me, but I should have just had candies.
Yes. Yeah. And if you could drink like Gatorade or anything like that during those dance competitions, that would have been ideal, because that would have helped to keep giving you an external source of fuel instead of relying solely on your glycogen stores.
Okay. I feel like I'm fully being educated on a different level on this episode, Dr. Jen. Thank you.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Let's talk about being a female competitor in
Mhm.
the super heavy category, because we both kind of match in that. So that's over 79 kilos for IBJJF. And how we're kind of playing our game, and, you know, just some of the challenges or ease of competition.
So I don't know if you can ever say there's an ease of competition. I think
I was trying to make it easier for some of us.
I
Mindset.
would say we usually do have the smaller bracket, because usually the biggest brackets are the 125ers to the 165. That's
Yeah.
kind of the big, that's where most of the females are. So if you're itty bitty, you tend to have a smaller bracket. And then if you're actual normal sized human being, you have a small bracket.
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those kind of challenges, the wrestling style, and,
Mhm.
you know, what makes you succeed in your category.
So yeah, definitely. I think for, especially for the super heavies, a lot of it is who gets that initial takedown, because that kind of sets the pace. Some do pull, some super heavies do pull, and if they get their pull and they get their sweep, you're in a world of trouble, because now they've started their game and you're a step behind. So it's
Yeah,
really important to know how you're going to start that first 10 seconds of a match, because that can really set the tone for the entire thing. For me personally, I like to do the takedowns. So I have a background in judo, and now I've been working a lot on wrestling since I switched to doing more no gi. And that can be a little bit tricky, especially the wrestling, because I am a 42-year-old female going into a room of wrestlers. There's not a lot of other people in the room that are coming in there without much experience at the age of 40. A lot of them wrestled in high, they're boys. It's all boys. It's me and the
yeah,
boys. So, it's raining men. It could just be played every time. All right. So I go in there and it's these 20 and 30-year-old boys. Most of them have wrestled in high school. Somehow we keep getting these college wrestlers that keep showing up. We got like a half a dozen of these monsters,
yeah,
and some of them are very large men, well over 200 pounds. And so it can be difficult to find someone who I can wrestle with, who's not going to hurt me, but still give me a challenge. Because I don't, obviously, if they just let me throw them, I don't learn anything. So that
yeah,
can be difficult to find. Someone who could challenge you, who's not going to hurt you, is one of the most difficult things when learning takedowns.
yeah. I'm just like, you know, strong necktie, whatever, you know,
Yeah.
just keeping them down and using pressure when I'm wrestling. And I've been doing much more of a no gi game recently. And then I go back to gi, and then I'm doing no gi moves. And I get kind of checked on that one.
Yeah, when I did a full year of exclusively no gi, and then I got ready for Masters Worlds, went to my first gi class, and I forgot how important grips are. And I just got swept hard because he had a hold of my sleeves, and in no gi, it's like, nah, no biggie, you can break the grips. There was
Yeah.
no break in the grip. He crossed my wrists. I went flying. It was a good reminder that there is a distinct difference between the two.
Yes, there is. And I think only when, you know, you transition and spend a period of time in no gi, for example, and then you return to gi, that you realize there
Yeah.
is. And until I'd kind of been doing a little bit of both, but mostly gi, and talking with lots of people on the podcast, going, you know, do you like gi? Do you like no gi? And everyone's been kind of, the narrative is they're the same, but only when you're practicing one and then transition back to the other, you realize they're completely not the same at all.
Yeah.
Um, Different techniques, although same kind of technical, you know. Anyway, yes, so that's another little learning point. Um, let's talk about training with some of the guys, and them kind of coming at us with their strength, whether it be a white belt or a blue belt, or even more advanced individuals in the game, and how we can, I don't know, look after ourselves as women in this
Yeah.
game of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So for me, I learned the hard way. I've been around for a couple decades, and I grew up on a farm, so I've always been ridiculously strong. So whenever I would go against the males, they couldn't throw me around like a typical female.
Yeah,
And some males had a problem with that, and so they would come at me much harder than was necessary. And when I first started, I had the mindset that I have to beat everyone. I can't turn down a match. I can't,
yeah,
I've got to go. If they challenge me, I got to get on the mat. I got to go. And I got hurt. I had back surgery because one of them, he was a brown belt, and he decided he got on my back and just arched as hard as he possibly could in the middle of training. I ended up
wow,
herniating my L5S1 disc and had to have a surgery to correct it because it was so just blown out that there wasn't physical therapy to be done.
wow,
And so, yeah, that was the one when I was like, okay. And because at that point I was in my 30s now, and it's like, this is a little ridiculous.
yeah,
So as I've gotten older, I have started to be much more mindful about my opponents, and who I will and won't roll with. And it's hard. I understand completely whenever someone says, "Hey, do you want to roll?" To tell them no and then go roll with somebody else can be
yeah,
very difficult. Um, Luckily, the school that I'm at now, because now my coach has actually put a no one over 200 pounds for me. He's like, you're not going to do it because he doesn't want
yeah,
me injured because he's got plans for me. So having a coach that supports you're only allowed to roll with this weight and
yeah,
below, and he sets different ones for the smaller females. But you finally you have to get to a point where you're like,
yeah,
okay, this is who I can safely roll with, so that's who I'm going to roll with.
yeah,
And it's not so much of this is who I can beat, because that's not what it's about. It's who can I safely roll with? If this person slips and falls, will they hurt me? If this person decides to crank up the horsepower to 100%, are they going to
yeah,
hurt me?
yeah,
And I think that's really important to figure out, especially as a female. If you're in a highly competitive room with males, you need to figure out where can you be safe, and
yeah.
that's where you stay.
That sounds very good. For me, I just avoid eye contact and kind of walk around the mat and kind of stay off the mat, rather than,
Yeah,
I'm not quite brave enough to say no yet. I'm in the
it's hard.
avoidance category at the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, it's definitely hard to be like, no, I'm not gonna roll with you. So
Yeah. Yeah, oh, it's good. It's all about practice and setting boundaries, as with
yeah.
anything in life. And I think jiu-jitsu puts us in that really difficult position to
Yeah.
have to say no sometimes.
Yeah, I was actually rolling with this guy because a friend of mine said this is so and so from this school. They came up for the day. Will you roll with them? And so I started to roll with him, and he was well over 200 pounds. He was like 220, 230, and he started
Yeah,
rolling kind of hard. And I was like, okay, So basically, instead of trying to compete with him, I more switched to a defensive mode to just try and
yeah,
keep myself safe.
yeah,
But at one point, he got a twister and like started to crank it, and I was like, no, 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 we're done. Like I
yeah,
said, we're done, and we stopped. Like I didn't finish the round with him, and it's one of those things where it's like this is not safe. I
yeah,
don't know what this guy's deal is, but it's not
yeah,
safe. I'm not gonna finish the roll. And so
yeah,
I went and sat down, and it's tough. It is very tough to say that to somebody, but
yeah,
I have to be aware of my safety because I want to keep doing jujitsu. And so
yeah,
sometimes you got to be the B word and
yeah.
protect yourself.
How did you deal with your feelings after saying no and kind of sitting out for the rest of that round? Because
Yeah.
when I'm in the avoidance kind of category,
Mhm.
trying to pretend that everything's okay, almost as if the situation didn't happen. But
Yeah.
how are you dealing with your mindset and being able to get back on the mats after a role that you've had to say no in the middle of the role to?
Yeah. So I'm not gonna lie, it was tough. I sat down against the wall, waited for that round to end, and then when the round ended and everybody was up moving around, I actually left and went upstairs because we have
Yeah.
an upstairs and a downstairs gym. And I went upstairs and I just kind of stayed up there. I breathed, did some deep breathing, and just kind of had to calm down because
Yeah.
not only was I mad that he acted like that, but I was also I don't want to say scared, but in that kind of elevated anxiety area because it was like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
Because it'd been a long time since I'd had somebody do that to me. So,
Mm.
I kind of had to just reset and take
Yeah.
some time, be like, okay, and just kind of bring myself back down. I think I stayed up there for 2 rounds. And then I
Yeah.
finally came back downstairs and I rolled with somebody that I knew well. I think I only did maybe 2 or 3 more rolls that day and went home. Because
Yeah.
it is very stressful, especially when you get to that point in the middle of the roll. Because rolling with someone is all about trust. Because we're literally doing simulated murder.
Yeah.
And when somebody violates that trust, you know, it's a
Yeah.
big deal. And he violated it.
Yes, I'm kind of echoing and holding space for your taking time away from the mat in
Yeah.
that instance. I think it's feeling comfortable to go and do that and
Mm-hmm.
take yourself away to reset and then come back, and then being cautious potentially on the subsequent roles after that, and then
Yeah.
going, actually today it's enough, that
Mhm.
I want to roll again tomorrow, so that's okay.
Yeah.
How can we keep ourselves safe to keep rolling and training jiu-jitsu for many, many years to come, Dr. Jen?
Uh, Strength training. I highly recommend strength training. That doesn't mean you have to become huge like me. Uh, but I do recommend lifting at least twice a week, mainly because that helps to strengthen your bones, your tendons, your muscles. It helps to strengthen the joint so that when you do get caught in a move, you're
Yeah,
able to like have time to tap. It's not going to immediately slide out of place. If you're rolling and you slip, right? Because the mats get sweaty, you slip and fall, your joints
yeah,
are protected. And that's what I think really helps to keep you in the game for a long time is just having strong muscles, strong connective tissue so that
yeah,
when stuff happens, it doesn't happen to the extreme. Maybe you only get a little sprain instead of completely tearing something.
yeah. Now, when you talk about strength training, are you talking about your kind of arms, your quads? Talk me through a sequence that you might do twice a week that would really help some of us masters athletes, masters hobbyists, to keep going for as long as possible.
Yeah, so really you can hit 4 lifts. I recommend doing 3 sets at 10 to 12. And those 4 lifts are the 4 major compound lifts. So
Yeah,
that's going to be some sort of press, be it bench press, incline press, you could do cable presses, whatever, something where you're in that horizontal plane pressing the weight away from you. The other one is the flip side, horizontal plane, pulling the weight towards you.
yeah,
So any row variant that you like, you can do lat pull downs as well. I think rowing is more applicable to jiu-jitsu because if you think
yeah,
about a cross collar choke is a row, an arm drag is a row. When you're
yeah.
pulling and breaking posture, that's all rowing motions. So I
Yes,
recommend a row over a lat pull down. That's
yeah,
your upper body. Lower body, you hit the front, you hit the back. So you hit some sort of squat or leg press,
yeah,
something where you're pushing the weight away, and then some sort of deadlift. Or you can do glute bridges, anything where that hip hinge. So you're bent over and you're
nice.
pulling the weight up.
Yeah,
So deadlifts are the common one, but they're highly fatiguing. So
yeah,
instead, you do a glute bridge, which does the same thing. You can do good mornings. You can
yeah,
do 45-degree back extensions, any of those things
yeah.
where you're using your posterior chain to pull the weight off the mat.
Good. Do you know what, Dr. Jen? Thank you for explaining that. I was with you
Yeah.
the whole way. I'm not shy of weight training. I've been weight training probably for about 35 years. Not so much these days, but I think I might be picking that up again. But I was able to keep up with your descriptions. I was like, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just hit the big four twice a week. You're good to go.
That sounds fantastic. And I've seen on your Instagram account some weight training or strength training for jiu-jitsu reels. Um, go and follow Dr. Jen. How can people follow you, Dr. Jen, if they haven't found your strength training for jiu-jitsu reels already?
So on Instagram, it's at Dr Jen Jitsu. Also on YouTube and Facebook, Dr. Jen Jitsu.
Amazing. Dr. Jen, I want to thank you for this conversation. I feel like we've ended very kind of early, although we've got a number of minutes through, and I could probably keep talking to you for ages. Is there anything else you want to add?
Just keep training, have fun, and you're in the best sport there is. So enjoy every minute of it.
Yes, you are absolutely in the best. We are in the best sport ever.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I wish you an absolutely fantastic day, and I will catch up with you again soon.
All right, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for telling your friends about this show. And as soon as this episode ends, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and a review. Thanks again for listening. Catch you on the next episode of the Jiu Jitsu podcast.